and I am from Italy. Today I will tell you about the paper clay technique. The paper clay is a mix of fibers and clay. And the fibers are natural fibers, and they give a lot of benefits to the clay when you are working to produce artworks, ceramic artworks. Okay, the main benefits of the paper clay are the strength, because the fiber creates an armature inside of the clay. Another benefit of the paper clay is the lightness. The paper at 250 degrees burns away during the firing, and the piece after the firing will be lighter. Okay, now I will show you with some images the mixing process of the paper clay. Make paper clay is very easy, and you can find source of fiber in many materials. You can find fibers in toilet paper, recycled paper, cotton strings, leaves, plants, or fabrics. Usually I use toilet paper because it's cheap and easy to find, and also because the fiber breaks very easily. To break up the fibers of the paper, you have to soak the paper in warm water. The warm water accelerates the process of decomposing of the paper. And then you have to soak the paper and mix with a blender to make the pulp. When the pulp is ready, you have to drain off the water and add it to the clay. There are different proportions that you can do with the paper clay. 10% of paper in the clay leave a good plasticity to the piece, but the piece will be more strength. This proportion is good for small pieces and medium-sized pieces. 20% by volume of paper in the clay give to the piece less plasticity during the working process, but the piece is very strong, so this proportion is good when you are building big sculpture. Plus than 40% of paper in clay is not recommended because the clay lost totally the plasticity, and the mix looks more like paper than clay. And also after the firing, the piece will be really weak because the paper burns away, leaving a lot of holes. After adding paper to the clay, you have to stir it until it takes a creamy consistency. Then you can use the slip paper clay to dip or to pour in a form, or you can pour the paper clay slip on a plaster slab to absorb the water. When the water is absorbed, you can wedge the paper clay and use this mix as a regular clay. And here are some tips for the firing. The paper clay have the same firing of the clay that you are using. The only things that you have to think about is when you are using an electric kiln, if you don't have a good ventilation system, it's better if you keep the lid of the kiln half closed, because at 250 degrees all the organic material burns away. So now I will show you the proportion of the paper and the clay and how to mix them. you need a ruler because this proportion is made by volume. So first you have to pour the clay slips on a bucket. Then with a ruler you have to measure how is the highness of the clay. Then I have put the toilet paper in warm water and I mix them. So now I have the pulp. The pulp is the paper when the fiber are break. You have to drain the pulp from the water because too much water will give to the mix will do to the mix too much water and you need more time to work with it. Okay, now I add some paper here until, for example, if I want the 10% of paper in the clay, I have 4 centimeters of clay slip and I will add 0.4 centimeter of clay, of paper. When I have reached the right consistency, I have to mix it. Maybe you can also use a blender or you can use your hand to mix it. And you have to reach this creamy consistency. You have to be really homogeneous. So you can see the paper inside of the slip. And this is a good percentage of paper to work on pieces of this dimension. I can use this as a slip, so I can use it to pour inside of a cardboard mold, for example, or I can use it to dip something inside and build a shape, or I can pour it on a plaster slab to make this very thin slab or to make a mixed work later. Okay, for example, if I'm using the cardboard, I have covered it with a newspaper because the cardboard is too rigid and when the clay is stick on it, it will crack when it shrinks. But if you put something soft that could follow the shrinkage, it's better. So you can cover the inside of the form with newspaper. Okay. So I can pour. It's better if you do this twice, so you can do a first pouring, leave the slip to cover all the sides of the floor, and then you have to empty it. And wait until it dry a little bit, because the first pouring is not enough. The thickness is not enough to fry it. Then you can also dip some always organic things inside of the paper clay slip. So usually I use plants or leaves and flowers or organic material as paper and cotton and wool. Okay, so I just dip in the paper clay. Leave it drain, and maybe if I see that the thickness is not enough, I can wait until it dry a little bit and then dip it again. And then I can attach to a form or just leave it there and fire. The thickness is very important because you have to think that inside of the clay there is the paper. So when the paper will burn away, you will have a lot of holes inside. And you have to do a good thickness to keep the form. So I have also made these newspaper rolls and wrap it with cotton, and I can dip also this one. In this way I have made this small sculpture there, so you can make a lot of pieces, small pieces, and then join together with slip. Then you can also make this very thin slab with a very easy technique. You need to have some newspaper. The newspaper, I will put the paper clay on the newspaper, and the newspaper will absorb the excess of water. In this way I can do very, very thin slabs, and they also dry faster. It's important that you use a thick newspaper.
最好是放那个比较多层的报纸。
And I can do this. I can do layers and layers on the top and leave there and store them until they.
然后可以一层一层叠上去，一层一层叠，然后就把它放置到那个干的。
Okay. And the last thing that you can do is to pour all your mix on the plaster. In this way, the plaster will help you. Will help you to absorb the water. And when the water is absorbed, you can use this clay as a normal plastic clay. Interesting construction technique is to use these dry slabs to make a composition. As I told you, I can work with dry material and wet material. When you will break these slabs, you can see the fiber of the paper inside. This will help to keep your structure strong. So I can just dip, or maybe using a brush, I can make a joint between the slabs. Okay, so I can build forts when it dry.
用这方法就能让我们建造出一些造型出来。
Very fast. It's very fast. But I can also, for example, I can also build this kind of sculpture, making one slab on top of the other, using just some slit to join them. And yeah, then you can also build some shapes with the paper. For example, here we have an example of some boxes made with newspaper. This is a bisque fire. It's very low fire, and so the paper and the porcelain is very weak and stable. When you fire the paper clay, porcelain paper clay, it's better if you can do just one firing, high temperature firing, so you will not have this problem of breaking.
好，那我们今天的 Q&A 时间就结束喽。好。